talk about nervousness, pressure, uh, uncertainty, all these different things if you've ever been married.
Hi, good morning guys. Bonjour, Paris.
I'm going to talk about something very different, neat, and interesting from a Hebrew word study that I was doing that I'd want to be able to share with you guys, even though I'm here on location doing some things for my job, out doing a Rhine River cruise out here in Germany, working my way through Amsterdam and Basel. But that's beside the point, because this is something that I think is very cool, very interesting, because we've all heard it said before. We are the bride of Christ. If you've been in church for a certain amount of time, then this is something that you have heard at least one point in time in your life, through a church service or something else, that we are the bride of Christ. And so I wanted to be able to connect that to this Hebrew word that I found in betrothal, the word Aras, or Aras, A-R-A-S. And we're finding this word in Hosea chapter 2, verse 19. And let me read that in the KJV version. And I will betroth thee unto me forever. I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness, and in judgment, and in loving kindness, and in mercies. Hosea chapter 2, verse 19. There is much talk, as I was saying, about church being the bride of Christ, Christians being the bride of Christ, or married to a Christ. And this, of course, is a very biblical picture of the spiritual union we have with Christ, to be able to convey the understanding by relaying it to marriage, so we can understand that spiritual union. And if we're not careful in the world's today's view, that the concept, the idea, and the view of marriage is very much so being skewed. It's being misunderstood through improper sexual content. It's being misunderstood through selfishness. It's being misunderstood through abuse. So if you've been married and you've been through an abusive relationship through marriage, or if you've been through an unfaithful relationship with marriage, I want you to toss all this idea of what marriage is out of the window, because I feel like at this point that it can cause a really unhealthy idea what it means to be the bride of Christ, not who Christ is for you, who he's meant to be for you. And I pray that you develop that a right mindset when it comes to this, that you develop freedom and healing from those types of relationships, because the enemy is, I fully believe that the enemy is using these concepts and these ideas of marriages to be able to destroy the spiritual union that we can have with God, that marriage, that betrothal that we can have with God and with Christ. And if we're not careful, our idea of marriage is going to ruin our idea of our union with God based on this. And so the idea of this betrothal is a growing passion. It's a growing desire. The Bible speaks mainly about betrothal in Hosea and in the Song of Solomon. And the only reference married to God is more so related to when Jesus Christ would be coming back. There's a lot of a correlation in relation to that. And so the scripture gives that context to us to take it. Apparently, this picture gives us that while we're on earth, we're in this betrothal period with God. And so what exactly does it mean to be betrothed? I read Hosea, I gave you some context in regards to that word, Aras. And if you look the word up, betrothal, in your lexicon, that you see that it means to be betrothed. And then the Strong's definition is to engage for matrimony. And so with Hosea, we really need to look more so at the Jewish literature and the tradition of the Talmud, and understand what it means to be betrothed. And so for trying to understand a healthy comparison of our relationship with God, not necessarily the world's viewpoint of what they might have made marriage, understanding this relationship that we have with God using the word Aras, A-R-A-S. Betrothal comes from that systematic work, a Sumerian language actually, meaning to desire. So we have this coming to Christ and that return, this period in between there is just a building a desire that we have for Christ, a building a desire that we have with God. And they're using this as to correlate it back to the Talmud and the understanding of the context in this moment, that this betrothal period rather, is the man's desire building to have intimacy with his bride. that one day that he would carry his bride away to be with him, and then so this would lead to a love consummated. And to continue our theme here on understanding the betrothal on the Old Testament concept and the idea that in this time frame that marriages were arranged, they were arranged marriages, and a lot of the times that the bride and the groom wouldn't meet each other until their wedding day. um, Talk about nervousness, pressure, uncertainty, all these different things. If you've ever been married, that you still feel these things with someone that you might have dated for some odd years or for whatever time frame that you might have been dating your significant other, that even on that day you feel super nervous. And I could never imagine what it would be like to have never met the person until that day of, and then expecting to have love and desire. And that's where that betrothal comes from. So they have their marriage, and then about a year, maybe less, that they would have this betrothal period where bride and the groom, they're learning each other's desires, they're learning each other's hearts about them in this betrothal period, so that they could be able to build a desire for each other, to be with each other. So it's Aras, this is a moment of desire building, sharing of hearts, that one night he would slip out of his house, take away his bride from her mother and from her father, and then to his father's house, and then there they would consummate their relationship and then their marriage that they've had worked on during this betrothal period. And yes, I said that he's going to sneak out of his father's house to take his bride and then take him back to his father's house. No, this isn't some kind of weird thing, because during this period that the groom is building an addition onto his father's home. So there's a lot of this preparation. This is a lot of this preparing, a lot of climax. A lot of things are building towards a particular climax of that moment that they met each other. They're married. They're building their hearts and the desire towards each other. And the husband, the groom, is building, and he's working for a place for them to be able to be together in the fullest moment of consummating that marriage, in the fullest moment of intimacy. That he's working towards this, he's working on this. And then this is also, it's very a public thing that the whole entire village is on edge and excitement of when the morning will come, that they'll see that she is with her groom, that the bridegroom has come for his bride, and that he's come and taken her away, and they've consummated their marriage, and they're fully intimate, they're fully known by each other in this moment. And even the bride is only maybe the only other person that might have a good sense or enough idea of when this night might come, that her groom would come for her. So she's not just this idle, whimsical bride that's just cavalier about her life and the things that she's doing all the way into the evening, that she's preparing herself, and then she's getting herself ready, so that way when he comes for her, that she's ready to be taken with him to the place that her groom's been preparing for her, that they can have this marriage consummated, this deepest moment of intimacy within their marriage and within their relationship. And so is this not for us the same? Is this not the same picture that we're seeing built on here for us on earth with our relationship with Christ? We have our coming to Christ, and then we have that return. Then we have all this area in between, that betrothal. You, the bride of Christ, in a moment of betrothal, that you had that wedding day. You were married to Christ when you gave him your life, your heart, and you repented and you came to him. That's your marriage date. And then you have all this period where you're learning the desires of God, the desires of God's heart, the love, and all those things. And you're seeing your heart being transformed by this passion and this intimacy with God, being alone with him, and knowing really who God is and who Christ is, and who you are in that you're learning all these different things. And it's this not the same type of thing that we have and see in that Old Testament idea, in that use of that word Aras, or Aras, and that betrothal that we have in this period that we are in as Christians, that we see this. And then of course John 14:2 would make so much sense to the disciples when Christ is saying, I'm going away now to prepare a place for you in my Father's house. to think about the excitement of the things that this could convey to the disciples, knowing that this isn't it, that he didn't come, that he's not going to give his sacrificial love up on the cross, that he's preparing something special for them, that his desires are now going to only deepen, his passion for them is only going to grow, his love is going to become extraordinary because he's building something for them, and that he's going to be able to come back for them. In that moment, that instant, that he would take us away from this present world to be present with him in heaven, that we see this happening in John 14:2, that we could know and our hearts could be made well if we are the bride of Christ, that he is coming for us, that he's preparing something for us. And I hope that if you were to hear that knock at the door, that you would be that bride that is ready, that you would be that bride that is prepared, that you would be that bride that would already know the desires of God's heart, that you've had those moments of intimacy, that this wouldn't be something that you would fear that knock, but that you would welcome it, that you would be excited about it, and for that morning that you would wake up and be with your groom, that you would be with Christ.